right. So we're back with another episode. I really don't know which the number of this episode is, but I would
Or
say, do you have the number down?
off the top of my head, I don't have it down if we're talking two-man shows, but it's the seventh game of the season, so I'm gonna guess basically 6 or 7 for us here on our count.
Well, we can get it rolling from here. This is the Dallas Prospect Show. So basically, what we do is we go over every single player that we can come to mind, and it's the Dallas Cowboys. So every prospect must start somewhere, and quite frankly, starting off with the Dallas Cowboys, looking through the whole entire roster, is pretty much what we do. We evaluate and go over player skill sets and their upcomings and their shortfalls and pitfalls. And we also look at the game collectively, and we try to find the intangibles, the things that others just may not be able to see. So starting off, my name is Lawrence, and I have Derek on the other end. And go ahead, Derek, and explain to us about the website that you got going on and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, no problem. So we fairly recently launched the Dallas Prospect. We are a sports and kind of pop culture website. A lot of focus generally directed towards Dallas sports and the general kind of culture of the city and things like that. But of course, you're going to get Dallas Cowboys, Dallas Mavericks, a little bit of Texas Rangers and Stars even in there, and even some other local teams and all that. Football, you'll get some Big 12 coverage, which will include like OU and things of that nature as well. So really just try to blend together a lot of things that are writers and contributors. We got a mix of writers, podcasters. We're going to be bringing in, I know you do some video content as well. We're looking to bring in a couple more people on that. So it's just trying to find a nice blend of all of our kind of contributors' interests and things like that with a general focus towards the city itself.
Yes, indeed. That's a mini synopsis of what the Dallas Prospects is all about. You guys can feel free to go to the website and also check out the Twitter handle too as well, and Facebook page. And we have a lot, I'm talking about absolutely a lot of content that's available to your eyes and ears. But let's just look back at this previous game. I know you did a game recap. I wasn't able to. As everyone pretty much know that I was in the process of still moving, so I still got stuff coming out of the boxes there. But what was the main focal points or the takeaways from the game that you saw?
Well, for me, it was a really good showing out of the defense. I felt, they came into the game and Washington's offensive line, really the whole team, but especially that offensive line was just beat to hell. And it going in, you kind of felt like with the way the Cowboys defensive line has been playing the last couple weeks, especially Tank Lawrence for the whole season, you really expected them to dominate. And I did feel like it took them a little while to kind of get to that point in the game, but when they came on really strong. And for the most part, I don't have any real complaints about the defense. I feel like they took care of business when they had to. Defense and special teams in general, I think, were really the heroes of this game. I felt like the offense after the first quarter, for the most part, kind of slowed down and stopped converting touchdowns. They were having to settle for field goal towards the end. So other than that, I really feel pretty good about the win overall. And I think today we're supposed to hear something new on the Ezekiel Elliott thing. I know we'll get into that, but that, of course, could play a big role in how we feel about the team moving forward as well.
Yes. Collectively, I was listening into some of the news that's out there in the stratosphere. They were saying that the judge is one of the judges on the panel is just not in favor of the Zeke situation, saying that it's a collusions or if it's something like a what you call that when someone is trying to conspiracy. Yeah, she was saying that it's not a conspiracy, that the NFL is after Zeke. So it's just one of those things that maybe it's a 50-50. I don't know. I don't have the news in front of me on the Zeke case, but I just hope they clear it up and just let the kid play.
Yeah, it sounds like the kind of thing going for him. I know he and his team are really confident right now in their chances of him playing this whole season. It sounds like a big part of kind of what they feel is going for them is the fact that now 2 federal judges have said that the NFL's process is basically the way they handled it is patently unfair in the sense that he wasn't allowed to see the findings of their report. He wasn't allowed to cross-examine the accuser. He wasn't able to address Roger Goodell at the appeal hearing, who actually made the ruling.
Mm-hmm.
The way the NFL, it was confirmed, basically cast aside the input of one of their experts who flat out said that there wasn't enough to move forward with it and that she did not recommend a suspension. He just kind of filtered that voice out. So I think there is something there. Whether that's enough to work in Zeke's case where he fends this off or, God forbid, somehow beats the suspension altogether, I don't know about that. I think at this point, the chances of him playing the rest of this season are probably a 50-50, basically, like you said, a coin flip.
Coin flip it is. So, well, it's just as one of those things that the NFL got their hand in so many things, whether it's controversial with the drug policy in the NFL, players taking a knee, owners calling out players, things like that all together. I just miss the 90s. I miss the 80s. I miss those type of football where it's, or the early 2000s where it was just football and you take all the other. I just think that I take out the other stuff. Now I do know that there's things that we like to do socially since the Twitters of the worlds and Facebook and Instagram came out. It's just so many things as far as political aspects of it. We just need to get back to football, and it's just one of those things that Roger Goodell have his hand so much in these things where you take the focus away from the sport, and now you're having like a quote unquote a political battle, or we are against domestic violence battle, or we against this and that. When it's just at the end of the day, it's a game. It is a game. We're playing a sport game. Things that we thought that we can get out there and advance our life collectively. But I digress on the topics because I know that political talk can just be such a coin flip too as well, whereas you have a segment of a population say, well, you should do this, and then a segment of a population of saying, well, it should go this way, when collectively it's a sport, it's a game,
Yeah, no, that's fine. We'll keep our focus on the only colors we'll focus on will be silver and blue. So
right. Well, looking at this game, I pointed out before this game that Jonathan Cooper, his ability to get off his release and block upfield and being aggressive, he was a blue chip player, is coming up through the ranks there. And I think that Zeke is finding the continuity with this particular offensive line, especially on the left side. I haven't did my numbers. We don't have a data guy who can calculate those numbers real quick, but I'm quite sure that he's averaging 4.5 or more running off the left side. That line is on the left side is doing this thing.
I don't know off the left side specifically, but I do know that since Jonathan Cooper has kind of found that starting job now, that place the last few weeks, they've put together a string of 30-point games every game since then. And since he's become the starting left guard now, Zeke's yards per carry is at 4.6 overall. I think that was coming into the Redskins game. So definitely a turnaround there. I think they've found consistency, and I think really the biggest showing to me, even with Zeke, gouging the 49ers last week, the 49ers are 0-8, so you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt. There's not a whole lot wrong on the surface with Washington's defense, as you saw for a lot of that game. But to me, the really telling thing with Dallas kind of finding that swagger again was in I believe it was still the first quarter, 4th and 2 from their own 48. Dallas not only goes for it, but they run Zeke right up the gut, and he rips off, 4 or 5 yards, something like that, to move the chains. I think that is really one of the times where you look at them and think, okay, this looks like the team that we saw last year that just ground teams into the ground, grinded them into the ground with the run game.
Yes, indeed. And if you look at that, a lot of people were calling for Jason Garrett head. I know even I had some slight reservations about Jason Garrett, but that's a gutsy call regardless, of what caliber of coach you are. It was a 4th and a long 2 or a 4th and 3, something like that. for them to trust the offensive line, and to have that type of continuity to developing amongst the offensive line is something fantastic. I think that carries along throughout the game. It set the tempo, it set the pace, and that type of temperament. Those are things that you want your offensive line to do out there, is to punch them in the face, beat them up. I would love to see. I would love to see the Cowboys play Denver right now, this stage of the game. I think it would be a whole different type of outcome, whole different type of temperament, because they playing so aggressive. And I can just sit back and look at tape of Travis Frederick. I can look at Zach Martin up in the middle. I can look at Jonathan Cooper all day, because the fact that they playing with those type of grinding type of mentality is just something amazing. And I didn't even mention number 77, nor did I mention number 71, but it's just how it is. You can just fall in love with every player on that offensive line.
Yeah, Tyron had a bit of a rough day, which is uncharacteristic for him. He's actually one of my kind of concerns, just because he's, the last couple of years had an ailing back injury, and that's kind of flared up from time to time, really affected his ability to practice throughout the week. He's continued to play at a Pro Bowl level, so it's hard to nitpick, really. But an uncharacteristic day out of him for sure. 3 holding penalties, one of which I thought was a little questionable, and a false start as well. So it does make you kind of wonder a little bit how much of that was just an off day and how much of that was, his back giving him issue. But other than that, the offensive line looks very much rounded into form. So does Zeke. I think Zeke is hitting the line harder the last couple weeks. I really think for Zeke, things turned around in the fourth quarter of that Green Bay game. He had, I'm trying to think of it, I think in the fourth quarter of that game, he had like 14 or 15 carries for like 70 yards or 75 yards. It was the bulk of his yards for that game came in the fourth quarter when Dallas started, grinding the Packer defense into the ground. And unfortunately, the Cowboys defense couldn't do a thing. So even though they possessed the ball for like 12 and a half minutes, they still got outscored 20-10 in that quarter.
Yeah,
but
they did.
Yeah, but I really think that's when Zeke kind of turned the corner, because since then he's looked more explosive. He looks like he's finishing off runs. And really, other than his first carry of this game, I thought he ran the ball extremely well.
He did, and like I said, a lot of people in the comment section are saying that Zeke does look a lot leaner. It looks like his build is a lot. I have to say this: he played his way into shape. He wasn't. There's no way I can look at film, and if you guys have a chance, look back at game 1 and 2, and then you come back and look at this game, the last 3 games that he played. You can tell that inch by inch he was getting back in shape. He's getting his running legs up under him. And it's one of those things that if off season, someone can argue and say, well, no, he was always in shape. He just built that way. But you can tell, the burst, the vision, the patience between the hole and hitting the hole with his landmarks. And it just seems like you said earlier, it just seems like he just have a little extra get up in his step,
Yeah, I think you can definitely see it. Just in terms of his body transformation, there was a game a couple weeks ago. He got dinged up a little bit, and they took off his pads, and I think you commented on it at the time. You're used to seeing him kind of with like the shredded 6-pack, and he had a little bit of pudge. Certainly by normal standards, he still is quite fit, but there is a difference, I think, between game shape and just general shape. And I think you're right. He's worked his way back into it. He looks more like the back that we expected to come into the season with. So better late than never. It's a shame that they started 2-3 with him. You would have thought before if they're going 2-3, it's because he's serving the suspension. So they're going to have to find a way to dig out of that hole now.
Yeah, and they got to find a way. Any news for this Ty Hilton? I think that T.Y. Hilton, I think that's how you say his name. They saying that, just reading through the comment box, someone was saying that there's a trade rumor for T.Y. Hilton for the Cowboys. Any news on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the talk linking Dallas to them. I have seen some talk linking Martavis Bryant to Dallas. I don't know how to feel about that either, really. I mean, there is something still a little weird how, Dak Dak this week only had like 142 pass yards, no touchdowns, no picks. But before that, he had 3 straight weeks of at least 3 touchdowns. So it is a weird thing that with that kind of performance, you don't also then see a trend where you're like, oh, well, the receiving core is tearing it up. Like Dez played all right in there. I don't think Dez. I don't know if it's that he's not the same caliber that he used to be. Like he's still really effective when he needs to be, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem like he's the 2014 Dez. And part of that could be just kind of the direction of the offense in general. And, there's things Romo brought that Dak hasn't yet learned or, just perfected and tweaked to utilize Dez the same way. But I think the rest of the receiving core is kind of leaving you scratching your head right now. Bryce Butler made a few plays early in the season. Now he's disappeared. Cole Beasley, I don't even know what planet he's on right now. Jerry said something during the game actually saying that they have no intent of trading him, which I didn't even think was in the consideration.
Yeah. Is this one of those things now? If I go down one by one, the receivers, I can tell you their normal trait. Dez, if you rattle him or you get into his face early in the game, you got a chance of winning. T. Will, he's a momentum type of guy. He catches with his body at times, or most of the time. And if he doesn't get started off sooner than later, then he disappears. The guy that can just come out of nowhere is number 19. He sometimes come out of just nowhere. He catches his ball and you say, "Who's that?" And then he's just that guy that flashes. To me, Cole Beasley had the thinnest skin on the team. He's very thin-skinned, and and you can just go to his Twitter handle and you can find that out too as well. And nothing to say against Cole Beasley because I love the aspect of his game. But what other receiver I'm leaving out? Now, number 85, he's just a monster. He just doesn't catch the ball because they don't throw him the ball. I don't know if he's getting separation or finding space, and that's Noah Brown. They got him out there, but and Switzer, he's one of those indecisive type of guys. I wanted to see more out of him, but I don't know if it's the playbook. I don't know if it's the coaching staff leaning more towards Cole Beasley. And remember I said Cole Beasley kind of thin-skinned. Maybe, just maybe, the fact that we drafted Ryan Switzer got that going on in his mind, Maybe he thinking that the footsteps are louder than what they are, in which he don't need to be worrying about. That's just our wide receiver core. We just don't have that core just saying, "Oh my God, look at this wide receiver core," Because that's just how it is for the Cowboys.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Mm-hmm.
I kind of look at what's happening with Beasley. I do think there's something to what you were saying there about being a little bit distracted perhaps by picking up Switzer. But you would really think with the way Switzer has struggled, and frankly, I kind of feel like Switzer's regressed a little bit. In the Arizona game, he flipped the field 2 or 3 times in a row there with punt returns. And lately, he kind of looks lost to me. Like whether it's taking the knee on the kickoff return at our own 14 at the end of the game or what, I don't know where his head's at. He seems very intent on trying to return everything, every kickoff whether it's out of the back of the end zone or whatever. You got to wonder if he's trying to catch it in the third row and run it back, I think part of that for Switzer's case, I think he's probably a guy who is so phenomenally talented that in college he was able to kind of skate by with that. Mm-hmm. And I think he's kind of having to learn now the differences and how in the NFL it takes more than just pure ability. You have to have an understanding for it and understand all the nuances of it. And I think that's kind of slowed him a little bit. As for Beasley, I actually think that there's something to be said. And I think maybe his coverage he's facing is different this year. Last year, he led us in receptions and in yards. And I really feel like if you look at tape, you're going to see that he's pulling probably the number 2 corner now, as opposed to the nickel or the slot guy guarding the slot. I just think that teams are intent now that they're not going to let Beasley move the chains on them 4 or 5 times a game. And because of that, he's drawing a harder assignment. Now, he should be winning more of them than he is, but I do think that's perhaps a factor.
Well, the thing is, you can bracket Beasley, like his one-on-one against the line is 50-50, but by him not being able to catch on the outside like the Eldermans of the world and the other guy that used to Amendola can be on the outside and catch. By him being so limited in his route tree, you can bracket him a little bit. You can have the slot corner to come down into the box a little bit and play a little bit more aggressive, and they can just pick out from there. But outside of that, until he found a way to be able to roll out to the outside and catch on a consistent basis, then they're just going to bracket. They're going to cheat the safety to his side. And if you see more so than none, the teams does have another safety cheating over to Dez Bryant's side, and they're just leaving. That's why you see old man Witt with the one-on-ones. But they saying like the teams are looking at the Dallas Cowboys offense and say, okay, I would rather for old man Witt to have his one-on-one and eat up the middle, and then when it gets down towards the red zone, that's when we would take Witten out the game. Because the field will speak for itself, as far as the Cole Beasleys of the worlds when you playing that so close to the red zone or the end zone or money zone, however you want to call it. So that's what teams have been doing on the Cowboys when they faces the Cole Beasleys of the worlds and the Dez Bryant. So the people that's supposed to eat are the T. Wills of the worlds and the Bryce Butlers, but they're not doing it. These guys are not stepping up. The number 2s and the number 3 receivers are just not stepping it up for us. And we pretty much, like you said, the going all the way back to the LA Rams game, we had that game pretty much won, but Switz made the fumble, and he's been shocked ever since then. He's been in a shell of himself, double thinking, double-minded of everything that comes across his plate. And then the Terrence Williams, that interception for pick 6, allowing the ball to get to his body, bouncing off his body, and then the opposition running it in for the touchdown, got him kind of like, okay, I started off with a bad ankle, and now I'm progressing real slow. It's just one of those things for our wide receiving core,
Yeah, absolutely. And, maybe they'll get some help here in the coming weeks. Rico Gathers should be coming off his injured reserve. So, you were mentioning Witten's getting a lot of looks. Maybe you can get a little bit more dynamic guy out there as a kind of a ace up your sleeve, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And then, old man Witt, Gold Jack and Witt, however you want to call it. He did have his casual hold that he have once a game in his false start. I don't think he had one this game, but those are things that, he play with so much anticipation that, sometimes those things happen. But if you have somebody who's maybe a little shifty or faster, younger, maybe you'll see a little bit more explosiveness from this offense. But at the same time, we scoring 30 points a game. So who are we to talk about it, right? Somebody probably looking at us like, you guys don't know nothing.
Right. And it's one of those things as well where you're going to look at you're always going to look for the little things your team can improve on, but no one's perfect. Every team has its issues. One of the biggest benefits going for the Cowboys right now, quite simply, is their health. As we mentioned earlier, the Redskins were just completely beat down with injuries. Pretty much the entire offensive line, including most of their backups that see significant time, were all banged up. And Dallas, for the most part, other than like Chidobe, they really have pretty much everyone healthy. Shawn Lee doesn't seem like the hamstrings really bothering him anymore. Jordan Lewis has been out there making some plays as well. I know he had a little bit of a hamstring tweak in training camp that lingered a little bit at the start of the season, but really Dallas is about as healthy as you could have hoped for. So, the team's just got to keep working through it. Maybe the offense will improve there with regard to the passing game. But I really think that in the NFL, as long as you have a capable – let me correct that. As long as you have a good quarterback, as long as you're getting good play out of Dak where he's not forcing passes, you're not seeing something where he's like the Denver game. I know that was kind of an anomaly game for him, but he has 2 picks in that game, could have thrown 3 or 4. As long as he's protecting the ball and taking the play that's there in front of him, you mix that with a dominant defensive line, and you're going to win most Sundays usually. The Eagles, that's why you see them at 7-1. The back of their secondary is weak by comparison, or I shouldn't say weak. Just it's their weakness, not necessarily that it ranks towards the bottom of the league or anything. But it's a weakness for them. And then they lose, Jordan Hicks, middle linebacker, and they lose left tackle Peters. So they're banged up as well. But because they still have Carson Wentz, who's playing out of this world right now, and they can pair it with a dominant defensive line, they're rolling, and it's not really slowing them down too much. I know the first half against the 49ers, it was a very low scoring affair, but they eventually worked it out and, took it to them the way Dallas did the week before.
Yes. And the thing is with the Eagles, Carson Wentz will give the ball away. And I do know that they seem invincible now. They had a very favorable schedule. And you think about it from here. Can you imagine playing Washington Redskins twice on your schedule on the first part of your season versus playing Denver at Denver on the first half? But, that's neither here nor there. I look at it from his Malcolm Jenkins, and they got a guy number 31, I think, Mills. They're pretty good, but they inside players. So I really think that Dez might do something against the Eagles. And just challenge them on the outside. So I think Dez can step it up doing when he plays. And then I think Terrence Williams, somehow we just still waiting for that 1 or 2 games that he can give us, that he can break out. And the more we play and get this continuity down with this offensive line, I just think that our offense versus their line is just so much better, But coming from, I guess, Cowboys Nation points of views, the Eagles will say, well, we just homer talking. But it's just one of those things that collectively this team is striking right at the right time. And I like us flying under the radar. I like us starting off slow because at some point I know for sure this team is going to pick up everything. And that's what we've been doing, picking up everything and getting that fast pace back to the right start.
Right. And, part of the Eagles thing as well, as you mentioned, because they finished 4th in division last year, 7 wins on the season, they had a basically last place type schedule. And that's kind of been a criticism towards Dallas in recent years. 14 and 16, both of our, impressive seasons have come on the heels of a not necessarily losing season. Obviously, in 16, we were coming off a 4-12. But in the case of 2013, we were 8-8. So you're coming off a non-winning season. You're going to get a little bit of an easier schedule. That's kind of how the NFL manages its parity among teams. And I think Philadelphia has certainly benefited from that early on, just like how I think Dallas last year at the start of the season, for the most part, got to benefit from that as well. I think they were able to kind of build that, full head of steam. And then when they started hitting the more difficult games, were able to, keep their momentum going pretty much all the way until Green Bay. So Eagles, we'll see what happens with them. But I do think they're kind of following a similar trajectory right now. Not to say that they're going to go 13-3, but we'll see what their health allows.
Right. And they are a team that plays out there in the elements. So in the second half, it's just a whole different coin flip. When you talk about, I know Carson Wentz, he played in North Dakota, somewhere up north. So
North Dakota State, I believe.
North Dakota State. So he used to playing outside and in the cold, but we'll see. We'll see how everything else, if they're not balanced out as far as run to pass ratio. I haven't really scouted the Eagles so much, but we'll see. Time will tell it all. Now, I think I wanted to touch on Cheeto Bay, Cheeto Bay Claiborne right now.
Yeah, that's good comparison.
Cheeto Bay Claiborne or Morris Awuzie, one of the two. He need to figure out a way to get out there on the field. And like I said before on one of my films, I was saying that this defensive back is very young. So although we saw 7 points given up by Anthony Brown. He's still second year. He's, believe it or not, he is having his sophomore slump. And on that same drive, I think Xavier Woods had a chance to get us off the field, and
4th and 5. Yep.
Right, 4th and 5. And to me, I was looking at Xavier Woods, and I was sitting there like saying he needs to gain about maybe 5 to 10 more pounds, basically, to play that safety role. If not, they're going to have to convert him to being a cornerback.
Corner, yeah.
Yeah, because he's just small, framed it from what I can see. He's not the biggest guy in the world.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed that Anthony Brown is struggling a little bit as well. I did think that his pass interference that kept that drive going leads to Josh Doctson getting the touchdown catch the next play. I did think that was a little bit of a questionable call. Both guys kind of tugged on each other. Both basically took each other out of the play, and I think that would in most cases be a no call. But yeah, he struggles this year. But one thing with the team, even though we've had a lot of good thus far, Cowboys have 25 sacks on the year, so that defensive front is giving us a lot of support. We have now the league leader in sacks, Tank Lawrence, 10.5, I believe, on the season. He also forced a fumble, and Tyrone Crawford also forced another fumble, also blocked the field goal, which was a huge swing in the game. Redskins were looking to go up 16-7, take a 9-point lead in firm control. He blocks it. Scandrick returns it 87 yards to the ultimately 2-yard line after you work in the penalty. Zeke punches it in, and suddenly you got a swing where the Cowboys take the lead. Then, on the defensive front side as well, you have David Irving, everything he's doing. He's been a man on a mission since he's come in off his suspension. I think he's got, 3 games under his belt? Yeah, 3 games under his belt, and he's already got 5 sacks. I mean, he is playing with a lot of purpose right now. He, I actually think, is more the definition of what that Jerry Jones war daddy looks like than even Tank Lawrence. I'm still a little concerned about Tank Lawrence just because he's coming off 2 straight off seasons with back surgery.
Yes, indeed. And it sounds like this can be that making. If we win a Super Bowl this year, this can be a making of ESPN 30 for 30. What if I told you, you know what I mean? What if I told you that this defensive line would be the best in the NFL? It's just one of those things that these guys, from Malik Collins all the way from Irving to Tyrone Crawford, man, like you said, just the Canadian destroyer. I just got to think of a nickname for this guy. I was calling Carr for getting rid of him. He's proven me wrong.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love the fact that he's proven me wrong, believe it or not, because think about it. Tyrone Crawford from Boise State, Orlando Scandrick from Boise State, D-Law from Boise State. Hey, these Boise State guys, they stepping it up outside of Kellen Moore. We had to get rid of him. But
yeah, finally did that again.
Right. So, he's back. He's gone. He's back. He's one of those things. But it's just something about Boise State on the Cowboys are playing lights out this year. And the guy that surprised me of everyone was Orlando Scandrick and Tyrone Crawford this last game. I'm sitting like, wow,
Right. Yeah, Crawford is finally, the last couple weeks, I think, playing more to the paycheck that he's getting. He's definitely not worth what we're paying him in terms of the return on investment we've gotten. But right now they're able to benefit off the fact that David Irving makes like an absurdly low $600,000 right now. And I don't know off the top of my head what Tank Lawrence makes, but he's still on the last year of his rookie deal. So you got basically your 2 studs are making not much. And that's kind of why you're able to have the talent amassed that you do have. Because to kind of mirror to the offensive line a little bit, I know a lot of people said the Cowboys should have found a way to keep Ron Leary. But Bob Sturm on the ticket made a great point today. You can't pay your 4th best offensive lineman $10+ million a year. Not with the way the salary cap is. And it's kind of similar with the defensive line as well. Again, obviously Crawford's not where you would want to spend the bulk of that money, but you can usually afford to pay one or two of them, and then after that, you kind of have to find a way to keep going with turnover and make it work with young guys or guys who kind of like Irving were unproven when you brought them in off someone else's practice squad or what have you. So if Lawrence can actually prove himself able to stay healthy, and I think more than likely if he continues on the trajectory he's got for this year, they're going to probably give him a franchise tag at least once. I think Irving, I don't know if Irving hits free agency this year or if they got one more with them.
Well,
they'll get paid.
You're in a big bind, and the person that we really need to lean on is, believe it or not, is Tyrone Crawford. Somebody, if you're playing GM for a day, you'll call him into the room and say, "Hey, how much do you love the Cowboys?" And you try to renegotiate his contract, and then you reach out to Zach Martin. And because you're going to use franchise tag on one of them, So you reach out to Zach Martin, you figure out what you can do with him, and then you got to figure out what you're going to do with Collins, number 71, and then you got to figure out what you're going to do with David Irving, because teams are going to be reaching and clamoring for. You mentioned Cowboys. You're going to have to want to pay. So, and we got a lot, and I'm talking about a lot of compensatory picks next year. And the draft is going to be in Dallas, so I'm thinking Jerry is rubbing his palms together, and I think Will McClay is just trying to figure out, okay, offense is set, minus maybe we have to figure out, believe it or not, these prolonged back injuries. You're going to have to figure out something to do with that offensive line, as far as Tyron Smith, and then you got to figure out something, because I think Dez Bryant finna turn 29 or 30 or something like that. So you got to figure out who's
he turns 30. Yeah.
Oh wow! So you really got to figure out who's going to be the next man up, as far as Dez. So I know we hate to talk about draft talk, but this is the prospect show. At some point, you got to talk about what we're going to do to replace these guys. And on our offense, you're only looking at one piece, and that's talking about the wide receivers and the other pieces, the offensive line. Maybe somebody who you can groom and develop. And then on the defense, you got all these compensatory picks. You got to figure out who I'm going to let go and who I'm going to pick up. Oh, right. I forgot Shawn Lee is not the youngest guy in the world either. So,
yeah, I think he's 31.
See,
but he's been fortunate enough health-wise the last couple of years to kind of rewrite his legacy a little bit, because early on, even just 3 years ago, there was no escaping that perception of him, that he was great when healthy but rarely healthy. And whatever they've done for him has definitely made an impact. I know he's talked about how he's kind of changed his workout routine and conditioning and kind of how he handles it. I know they moved him from middle linebacker, a little bit more, I think, weak side. So they're definitely trying to protect him, and I think it's definitely rejuvenated his career. But linebacker is always one of those positions you got to at least take a look at. As we saw just a couple weeks ago when he was out, look how thin you suddenly feel at linebacker, when Jalen Smith has to play 30-something snaps a game.
If I can just give Shawn Lee, Jason Witten health, man, we'll be all right. But it's just one of those things that Shawn Lee collectively, he's one of those guys. Okay, everybody in the chat box saying Dez will be turning 29 opposed to 30. Well, okay. So that gives us a little more wiggle room, but we all been counseling out Larry Fitzgerald, for a long time, and look at him, he's still out there. And but it's one of those things that if I look at it from this aspect, Shawn Lee is getting old and long in the tooth, and we got to figure out what we're gonna do with that. But that's a story of a different day. What do you think about this Kansas City Chiefs team? I don't have the score up, but I'm thinking that they win. I can feel it that they're winning right now.
Yeah, I know they were doing pretty well earlier. I haven't looked at the score the last 10 minutes or so, but I think the Chiefs, they're still a very good team. I know that they've lost the last couple, and we'll see how tonight plays out. But they got Kareem Hunt, so they've got a more than capable running back right now, and our run defense has not been as good this year as it was last year. Last year, I don't think they ever I might have it backwards. I can't remember. It was either they didn't allow a 100-yard rusher or it was receiver. I know that that's polar opposite there, but so Chiefs are up 14-0 on Denver right now, early second quarter.
14-0, 14-3. I see what people are saying now. But
but yeah, the Chiefs they're still a team that I think has to be contended with. That doesn't mean I consider them in the elite class lately of the NFL, but it's still going to be a very tough win to have to go get. It's just a matter of controlling the line the way that they've done the last couple weeks, and then if your defensive line can get pressure, then that makes a world of difference.
Yeah, and I won't be surprised. I don't know the over/under record of Jason Garrett versus the coach. What's his coach name from Philly? He's a Kansas City coach now. What's his name? Mike.
Starts with a P?
No. The name. His name is it?
That's slipping my mind too.
Man, but he was one of those guys that I think
you're talking about the former Eagles coach who's now with Kansas City.
Kansas City is the same offense. What's his name? You guys in the chat box, y'all know his name.
Yeah, Andy Reid.
I
had it back. Yeah, I had it backwards. I thought you were saying went from Kansas City to Philadelphia. That's why I was saying Pedersen.
Right. So this is the thing is with Jason Garrett. He's smart, crafty guy. And if we looked at the over/under record versus Jason Garrett versus the Redskins, since he's been coaching, he's well over 500%. He's like 9-4 or something like that. Just a very good number. I want to know what his record is versus the Eagles coach, Andy Reid, because he could have been the reason why he got up out of Philadelphia. Because I think that Jason Garrett would know collectively the plays that Andy Reid is going to run and how he's going to try to play against the Cowboys, because those things just pretty much doesn't change. So you're looking at Kareem Hunt versus the Cowboys. If Shawn Lee is pretty much going to be Kareem Hunt versus Shawn Lee basically, and it's going to be that motion type of offense that Andy Reid likes to do. And he'd like to have that one speedy player on the edges, and they got that, and that's number 10. That's the guy that'll probably strike fear down our hearts. Everybody else, I think we can bracket and cover. I think that this game, believe it or not, I'm not trying to over-talk everything, but I think that this game is going to be a win for the Cowboys.
I definitely feel better.
The score is just going to be a win, though.
Yeah, I definitely feel better about their chances now than I did 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was looking ahead, not just to this game, but to this next 4-game stretch in general, and wasn't feeling great about it even 2 weeks ago, despite the offense humming, just kind of what we were looking at with the defense, especially that Green Bay game. A lot of reason for concern there, but with the return of Shawn Lee, we've gotten better against the run again, and the only thing I haven't really seen is, even though we're getting a lot of defensive pressure with our front four, I haven't seen it result in many turnovers for the secondary, like interceptions. I know Byron Jones got his second career interception that put the game on ice last night, but that's really the only time. They said in that game it was the first Cowboys interception since week 2, Jordan Lewis at Denver.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that this team need to figure out a way. I mean, several of those balls that were going to Crowder was pickable, and were they're giving him a free release again. I didn't like that. I know that they have to account for his speed, but several of those plays, they locked down the prior kid, the senior. They locked down collectively throughout the majority of the game the Doxson kid, but they having problems with Chris Thompson and Crowder. And if you look at the Chiefs, they have similar assets of those type of players with those type of skill sets, I meant to say. And it's one of those things.
They also got Travis Kelce you got to worry about.
Oh, my goodness. I forgot all about him. He's I don't know if Zach Ertz was on the team when when he played against when he was with Philly and when Andy Reid was coaching Philly. That's the only way I can just, because I really haven't watched so much of Kansas City game play. But I do know that Travis Kelce,
he's going to be a handful for sure.
I don't know now. You know, he got Byron Jones. He kind of I'm just playing. Well, I want to see this matchup, Byron Jones versus Travis Kelce. If Byron Jones worth any penny that we draft him on, then he will slow him down. Not stop him completely, because I know what happened last year with Jordan Reeds of the world. And but we will see though. I have faith and confidence in our defense against the tight ends. It was just those small, quick, fast receivers that I had worries a bit last year. In parts of this year.
Tyreek Hill definitely has a chance to break it every time he touches the ball. So you got to worry about him in punt returns too. So you just got to be ready on all fronts. They have their own kind of three-headed monster. You got a capable quarterback with Alex Smith, but between Kelce, Kareem Hunt, and Tyreek Hill, it's going to be a tough game for the defense. The last 2 weeks, our defense has looked a lot better, but it was against the 49ers and it was against a beat to hell Washington team. And, Jordan Reed for the Redskins exited in the first half with a hamstring injury, did not return. So you can say that our defense is rolling, but we're also a little bit untested with that. I don't think we have a win yet this season against a team with a winning record. So this is our first real challenge. I feel like first real challenge once the team got rolling.
If we can keep Kareem Hunt under 50 yards, then it's a W in our book.
I would sell my left arm to keep Kareem Hunt under 50.
Yeah, right. But we'll find out when that time comes. And I'm just reading over some comments in the chat box. They said, Heath is not having the best of this year. Jeff Heath needs to know that he's not having a good year at all.
Yeah, Jeff Heath, the last 2 games I haven't noticed him killing us, so I guess that's improvement.
Yeah, but they also saying that the scrambling quarterbacks kills us, this defense. And you have any reasons why? Do you know?
I think it's just the issue of contain in general. If you're playing man, if they catch you playing man, then you got your backs turned to the quarterback anyway. Alex Smith is certainly capable. If he needs to run, he will. It's not his first instinct, but he's capable when he gets on the move. So I don't know schematically why they've struggled with it, but part of it's just you don't have a lot of running quarterbacks that are also a real threat to throw the ball. Aaron Rodgers, he's not a nimble guy, but he's got just enough speed to him that because he's so dangerous with the arm, he can kind of lull defenses into falling back too much.
So, yeah, you're right. So this Chief team was the only team that gave the Eagles a loss, right?
Yes, and it was a very close game at Kansas City.
At Kansas City, so they playing at Dallas. So this one of those games where it's a good measuring stick of seeing where we at collectively. So, I mean, if we can, they say KC's runs a read options a lot. So, yeah, that's why they able to get it to the edge. There are a lot of people saying in the comment box. So, yeah, if we don't figure out a way to get up points, I'm talking about more than just momentum. I'm talking about getting points up on the KC and having them to play rush. Because I don't think that Alex Smith is the guy that can just carve you up in that type of fashion of like a comeback type of quarterback. I think he's more of I play with the lead type of guy, and most quarterbacks are. And Andy Reid.
He's had a couple games this year. He's had a couple games this year where he really lit it up. So he's got it in him. He's not an Aaron Rodgers that'll give it to you every week, but he's certainly capable if you test him and if you make yourself vulnerable in that way, whether it's just not respecting him enough, selling out, stacking the box, he can make you pay.
He's one of those
guys
had
a couple games this year.
You have to throw an interception too as well. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so Oh wow! So we go right. We have our hands full, but somehow, some way, I just feel that this team playing a home game. I think we lost 2 in a row at home. I think it's one of those things where we need to win. Did we lose 2 in a row at home?
Yes, we lost to the Rams and to the Packers,
Which were both winnable games, right?
both of which should have been wins. Yeah. The key on the Chiefs thing, I think there's only one game this year they haven't given up 100 yards on the ground to a running back. That's where they're weak. So if Dallas can ride its strength and control the clock like they did all last year, then I think that's their key, I think, to beating the Chiefs. And, then you also have to worry the momentum swings with regard to anytime you do have to punt, make sure you punt the ball away from Tyreek Hill. Do not put it in the play of field where he can do something.
I trust Chris Jones to do that. So, comparable to last year, who is the Kansas City Chiefs opponent? Like who are they comparable to last year? Who we played last year, so we can give the people an ideology.
Let's see, a comparable team that we faced last year. Off the top of my head, I don't know of a team from last season that kind of fits this mold. It's a little bit of a unique animal.
Okay, unique animal, because one can say Detroit, they was rolling with fire, right? Last year, there was hot.
Yeah, but they didn't. Yeah, but you don't have the same type of I mean, we were talking about how Alex Smith can really punish you with his legs as well if he needs to. I don't see that in Stafford. Stafford will beat you with his arm and, the crazy angles he can throw passes from. But, yeah, the Lions might be overall as a team about as close as you get. Another significant thing people I don't want to say they forget it, but because it happened early in week 1, I think it's overlooked a little bit now. Eric Berry, their safety, going down within a torn Achilles against the Patriots. I think that's another thing there that has impacted their defense. It's sort of similar in my mind to like when Seattle lost Earl Thomas last year. I think it has a similar effect. And while they're still a pretty good defense, I think as shown by their last 2 losses in a row, their defense has suffered a little bit there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. And that's something that they have to take account for. A lot of people were saying the Steelers, a mobile quarterback that can get out and comparable to the team.
That's a good
decent defense. AB, you can take it to the house on a punt return. You got a good running back,
Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell. I'm about to say Byron Bell. Le'Veon Bell. And, I like to see him back there running the ball. But so it can be, if you compare them 2 teams together, then was it a shootout, 35, something like that?
Last year it was like 35-31 Dallas. If you're talking about the Steeler game last year. Right.
So that's the type of flavor that you might have this coming Sunday.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. I think if Dallas can jump out to an early lead and then try to control the game there, keep it where Kansas City doesn't get to rely on Kareem Hunt as much, make them, because that's the formula, right? You establish an early lead, and then you take away their run game because they're playing from behind, which means they're going to have to throw the ball more. I like my chances better of forcing Alex Smith to beat me than forcing Kareem Hunt. Although, obviously, if Smith's throwing the ball and throwing it to Tyreek Hill, that still, or Kelsey, those create issues as well. So it's going to be a great challenge. I think it's going to be kind of a line in the sand for the defense to prove that they're gelling now, and now that they're more or less fully healthy, that they are more like last year's defense, which was quite capable, albeit not elite.
Yeah. And so that is possible there altogether. Another thing too as well, do you know off the top of your head, Shawn Lee, when he's in the game, minus the Denver game, of course, what was the over under, what was the score of the opposition when he's out there, playing defense, is it
like
under 25?
the average?
Yeah, The opposition scoring under
Let's
25? Is it under 20 or
Well,
what?
so Shawn Lee's been back the last 2 games. He was out Green Bay and the Rams game. Both games the defense gave up 35, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, or 34, 35, something like that. Those are the only 2 games he missed. So that's what you're looking at without him. And since he's come back, they gave up 13, I want to say, to the 49ers. Am I being over generous there? I can't remember, honestly. It's only a couple weeks. That's not so good.
Yeah, I can see the people now saying, well, it's the 49ers and, well, it's the Redskins without their starting offensive line and all that.
Yeah,
so.
and that's kind of what I was saying earlier, too. It's good to see them showing out, but it's also games they should have shown out. And the thing you hope about is building momentum and building confidence, I think.
Yes, indeed. So, man, we've been talking for a while. Anything else you want to get off your mind?
Yeah, other than just to say that we're going to be doing a lot more with the site and everything. Obviously, you're a big part of that as well, the DallasProspect.com. Going to be doing a lot of Cowboys coverage. We'll also work in some Mavs, and when, baseball rolls around again for the Rangers, we'll see about that. But yeah, just going to keep busy with a bunch of work here. Going to get into some college football stuff as well. And outside of that, just follow us on Twitter at Dallas Prospect. You can also find us on Facebook, the Dallas Prospect. So yeah, that's kind of my thought there.
Right. And so far, that's good, guys. So check out Dallas Prospects. I forgot to mention, and I mentioned this award last time we had the conversation, the Intangible Award, right? Who was which player had the intangible play of the day, or which player that was under the radar last game that needs to be shown or put on the spotlight?
It's a close one for me. I'm going to say Tyrone Crawford. I think, yep, he had the sack. He forced a fumble. He blocked a field goal. That was, as we said earlier, the blocked field goal was the change in momentum for that entire game. So I think he's got to be your sleeper of the week, definitely. And then my close second probably would have been Orlando Scandrick, just because, we're talking about guys you would not expect to do something. Kind of like our own hot fried Georgie player of the week, if you listen to the ticket.
The intangible player of the week is Tyrone Crawford. Next runner-up will be Orlando Scandrick, and probably not last but not least, but number 2, Nugent. Right? he came through.
Yeah,
he missed the
we
first
didn't even
kick.
Talk about that.
Right. So that's something right there. He missed the first kick, and everything else was pretty much spot on. So
yeah. So not to get on a long tangent on him, but he hasn't played, I think, since week 15 last year. In a 2-year span, he had, I think, 6 missed extra points with the Bengals, so they let him go. So I was a little bit perplexed when they signed him, but they had to do something, because we know Dan Bailey's out for at least a few weeks. When he went down with an injury and then they immediately told us a few weeks, it's got to be something with the potential to be more serious if they don't immediately address it and give him extended rest. So I was a little perplexed by the choice of who they signed, and he hooks wide left on that first 49-yard attempt, and I got a bit concerned there. But man, he drilled down after that. I think he made 4 field goals on the day: 48, 37, 26. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I know he pretty much all ranges, pretty much everything you would ask for. So hey, if he can give us that, then maybe they can do all right without Dan Bailey.
Right. And then we just don't want this to be long, because normally the field goals, when they get lined up for field goals, that's normally be my beer run. I can say, I can go grab beer now. But with Nugent out
Bailey,
there, yeah, when Bailey's out there. But now with Nugent, I'm sitting there at the edge of my seat, sitting there like, oh Lord, what's going to happen? But he missed the first kick, like I said. Now, ever since then, he was kind of like spot on.
Yeah. And anytime you're missing out on the guy who is statistically the most accurate kicker in NFL history, you're going to hurt. It's just, you're going to hurt in some form or fashion. You're going to miss him. I mean, it's pretty much by rule the way it's going to be. I know we said Nugent went 5 on the day. Really impressive showing. I don't think that's going to be typical of him. But, you know, all you're asking for is a guy that can still hit somewhere in that 75 to 80% range, I think, considering the fact that he's a more or less a rental for a few weeks. I don't see them keeping him once they know Bailey's healthy.
No doubt, no doubt. So before we run to as well, and that's good point there. All 22 film will be released tonight at 12 o'clock. So I want the fans or the people who watch and follow the channel to let us know who you guys want us to take a look at first, you know, whether it be Tyrone Crawford or whether it be Orlando Scandrick game or Taco Charlton pitfalls or Jordan Lewis play out there in the field. You guys let us know in the comment box below so that I can start working on some film on the all 22 as well. So guys, let me know. And Derek, let me know who do you have an eye for out there?
I'd actually kind of like to see Orlando Scandrick's day. I felt like he really stood out, and you know, you don't always see everything going on in the secondary. So I think he'd be a really interesting guy to take a look at first, just because I felt like he really was a close second for me on that kind of unsung hero thing.
Unsung hero. So he's the intangible award winner, well, second place runner up, and he also the unsung hero. And will there be a nice article on that? Did you guys can check out on the website?
Yeah, we can absolutely put something together for that. Yeah, we'll get to work on that.
Yes, indeed. So this is first year being captain, so we got a lot of stuff that we want to give out to you guys on Orlando Scandrick, and we're gonna have the video coming soon. Hopefully by Wednesday, we have a full in-depth video of Orlando Scandrick and his outstanding game for the Dallas Cowboys this past game, and we really want to see him do it at least three games in a row, like Jonathan Cooper just did. He just did it 3 games in a row, being outstanding, open the holes up for Ezekiel Elliott. And normally scouts will say if you've seen it one time, you know that they have the ability to do it again. But we like to see 3 times in a row, so hopefully Orlando can step it up next game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, indeed. So that's been my time, guys. I really thank everybody for tuning in to the Dallas Prospect Show. I'm Lawrence with Law Nations, and we have Derek on the other end. Salute to you guys, and Derek, you can close it on out.
All right. Thanks, man.
Peace. We out.